Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
We're closely watching a system that could develop in the Bahamas and potentially affect North Carolina. I'll show you where it could be headed.
Some local families who didn't receive school vouchers for private school are demanding answers about funding, what they want to happen next.
Also right now, Team USA is trying to increase the medal count at the Paris Olympics. We'll have an update plus a preview of the events you won't want to miss.
We've had our share of tropical heat, and now a tropical system, as Elizabeth mentioned, could develop near the Bahamas in the next few days. Good afternoon to you. I'm Jeff Hogan.
And I'm Renee Chu. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get right to meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner on the WRAL weather patio with a look at how this could affect North Carolina.
We have been watching this for the last several days, and things continue along the path of it looks like something will develop, but we continue to have some discrepancy in the models of whether it's coming up the East Coast or moving into the Gulf of Mexico. So it still has a 60% chance of developing. That did not change with the 11 o'clock advisory that we get from the National Hurricane Center. It still does not have a closed circulation. It's still developing. So we have some time to watch this. It is not something that is going to be headed our way immediately, but could be affecting us over the weekend. Here's a look at that tropical outlook again. I got a 60% chance, and you can see the orange shaded area. That's the location where it could be developing and then potentially moving as we get through the next 7 days or so. This is a look at our tropical storm probabilities, the chance that it could become a tropical storm. And you can see that yellow shaded area, again, is about 60% chance of it developing into a tropical storm. Now, one of the computer models does want to tuck it back into the Gulf of Mexico instead of bringing it up the East Coast. It'll depend on how much it strengthens. You see that big high pressure system sitting out in the Atlantic? That's our Bermuda high. It's a high pressure system that sits there for much of the summer. And in many cases, it will feed those storms up the East Coast. That looks like the most likely scenario, but we're still watching our American model that could feed it into the Gulf of Mexico. And if it does, of course, we would have lesser impact here or no impact at all. So let's take a look also at the hot temperatures that we're experiencing. We already have a heat index at 104 in Goldsboro right now, and definitely going to be heating up here in the Triangle as well, up to 102 to 104. Tomorrow and Friday could be even hotter, and we also have the chance of some severe storms. I'll go over all of that for you coming up.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, this just in, Lake Myra Elementary School says they are dismissing early today because they do not have AC. They posted this to their website saying that due to our HVAC system not working at full capacity and the building's high temperatures, we will dismiss students at 11 a.m. today. So students have been dismissed already. Families can pick up their students, but the school buses will also provide transportation home, and staff will stay on the property until every single student is picked up today.
Dozens of families who want private school vouchers but can't get them rallied at the legislature today.
They're asking lawmakers to reach a deal to pass a bill that would expand voucher funding. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie explains why that proposal has been stuck in limbo.
For months now, House and Senate Republicans here have been arguing over a proposal to add $500 million to the state voucher program. These families are here to talk to lawmakers today in hopes that they can move the needle. With state House lawmakers holding a voting session this morning, dozens of families gathered outside to urge them to reach a deal on vouchers. State lawmakers removed the income limit for private school vouchers last year, and since then, the waiting list has swelled to some 55,000. Senate leaders sent the House a proposal this spring to add $500 million to the program to cover the waiting list for the next 2 years. But House leaders refused to vote on it. They said it needed to include some money for public education, too. Senate leaders balked at that, so the bill is in limbo. Rachel Brady is a mother of 4.
We want to help them get this done. We believe it can happen. They can take action even as soon as today if they chose to. So we want them to see us.
Public school advocates say that money will ultimately come out of the public school budget, leaving those schools less able to educate kids. House Speaker Tim Moore and Senate Leader Phil Berger did meet with parents from the rally just minutes ago, but there's no sign yet that a deal is imminent. Laura Leslie, WRAL News, Raleigh.
Today, the State Board of Education will discuss results of a statewide survey. It shows the state will need roughly $40 million to install carbon monoxide detectors in school buildings that don't have them right now. CO detectors are required now, but they weren't when many schools were built back in the day.
The owner of the Carolina Hurricanes says he is very serious about bringing a Major League Baseball team to Raleigh. That's what the new CEO of Hurricanes Holdings told reporters this morning. WRAL's Destiny Patterson was there asking about the logistics of an MLB team coming to the capital city. Destiny.
That new CEO, Brian Fork, says the main thing is that the owner, Tom Dundon, is taking charge and he's on board with bringing Major League Baseball here to Raleigh. Right now, Fork says that they are only in the information gathering stages. Fork and the team president, Doug Worf, are new to their executive roles. They talked with me and several other reporters about their roles and their goals. And Fork says one of his responsibilities is baseball. The MLB is expected to expand to 32 teams. So the question becomes, why Raleigh compared to other cities? Here's what Fork had to say in a one-on-one interview.
We don't have baseball, Major League Baseball, anywhere in the state. And here in the Triangle area, we got a lot of college sports. We have the Hurricanes. I think we've got the capacity, the growing business capacity, corporate support. That's just going to keep building and building and building to the point where I think it's probably the best place to put a team in the country, really.
They also discussed the development in the works around PNC Arena that'll encompass up to 80 acres of land and will include dining, shopping, a music venue, and more. Fork says that a possible baseball stadium would probably not be on this PNC Arena site. But Worf says that PNC's transformation, along with their efforts to get Major League Baseball here, are legacy projects that future generations can enjoy. Destiny Patterson, WRAL News, Raleigh.
A heavy medal favorite in the freestyle BMX came up short and did not medal. Hannah Roberts is a Jacksonville, North Carolina native and a silver medalist in Tokyo. The five-time world champion had a stellar performance in the qualifiers, but crashed out of both her runs in the freestyle BMX finals today. Her American teammate, Paris Benegas, took silver. Katie Ledecky looks to add to her medal count. This afternoon, she is chasing gold in her signature event, the 1500 freestyle. The Olympic gold medalist owns the 19th fastest times in the event's history, and she won its Olympic debut in Tokyo by 4 seconds. Catch the action in Paris beginning at 2:30 p.m. over on WRAL. Let's take a look at where the overall medal count stands this lunch hour. The USA continues to lead the way, 27 total medals. The host nation just 6 medals behind, followed by Great Britain in third.
11 dogs are safe this noon hour, and a Lenoir County man now faces several animal cruelty charges. The takedown happened early this morning at a business called East Carolina Retrievers. WRAL's Ken Smith is here with what we know about the investigation and the dog trainer now in deep trouble. Ken.
Yeah, first off, Jess, this video you're about to see is very difficult to watch, but it shows why the man is facing several animal cruelty charges and why so many of our viewers reached out to us to find out what's going on that property. Again, this video is very difficult to watch. In the video, you can see a man beating a dog. We're not sharing the audio, but the dog is yelping after every blow from that beating. Early this morning, deputies converged on a property in Pink Hill in Lenoir County that is the site of East Carolina Retrievers. Matt Neal, who owns that business, was arrested. He's charged with 9 felony cruelty to animals charges in Lenoir County and 2 misdemeanor animal cruelty charges in Duplin County. His bond was set as more than $40,000. Now, authorities plan to hold a news conference this afternoon to discuss this case. You can watch that news conference live on WRAL News Plus on Channel 34 over the air, Spectrum 1257, or in the WRAL app on your smart TV and mobile devices. That news conference begins at 2 o'clock this afternoon. WRAL's Heidi Kirk will be at that news conference and look for new reporting beginning at 4 right here on WRAL News on Fox 50.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, Granville County Sheriff's busted a cockfighting operation on a property on Saturday. The Granville County Sheriff's Office is holding a press conference about this right now. You can see they're standing there at the podium. After days of tips, an undercover deputy paid his way into the fight and captured video. That was enough to secure a warrant in a wooded area. That's when they found the setup for the fights and dozens of people. They also found buckets containing dead chickens, along with guns, alcohol, and drugs. Almost 200 roosters were removed from the property. The animals right now are at the Granville County Animal Shelter being cared for. But again, a press conference going on right now to talk about all of that. I'll listen in and bring you any updates from the Live Center.
Less than 24 hours after Hamas's political leader was killed in Iran, North Carolina lawmakers held a news conference calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. 48 North Carolina elected officials are sending a letter to the Biden administration and North Carolina's congressional delegation. They want the U.S. to help gain the release of all hostages. Representatives from Jewish Voice of Peace and Muslim Women for spoke at the conference.
An immediate permanent ceasefire is critical when every single day more and more people are slaughtered.
The true death toll could exceed 186,000 due to uncounted casualties buried under the rubble and indirect death from destruction of health facilities, food distribution systems, and other public infrastructure.
Friday marks 300 days since the October 7th attack in Gaza. The death toll in Gaza is now more than 39,000 people, according to Palestinian health authorities.
Kamala Harris will be in Raleigh next week with her new running mate by her side. The Harris campaign says she will announce the running mate in the coming days, and then they will crisscross the country together. Their first stop together will be Philadelphia on Tuesday. They will also visit Wisconsin and then go to Detroit, Savannah, Phoenix, and Las Vegas next week, along with Raleigh. Former President Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, is calling Harris a disloyal American. He held a campaign event last night in Reno, Nevada, saying opening the border to millions of migrants is threatening to bankrupt Medicare. Vance continues his western swing with California fundraisers and rallies, as well as a visit tomorrow to the U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona.
Plans to build a new Civic Tower project in Raleigh took a big step today. This morning, access to Hargett Street between Dawson and McDowell Streets were closed to traffic. A large crane is being put there, and crews are moving barriers into place. Some sidewalks will not be open for people. Cyclists will have to follow detours, and transit routes will be impacted. The city prepared local businesses for the change, but all businesses will still remain accessible and open.
Take a look at stocks this noon as we have reached the midway point of the trading week. See the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now spent a little time in negative territory, but it has rebounded today. It is up well over 200 points. NASDAQ also making a big move, up well over 400 points this noon. S&P 500 is up 57 right now. Coming up next at noon, calls for police transparency of employment records. What activists want in the wake of the shooting death of Sonia Massey.
Also, a blood donation nonprofit was hit by a cyber attack. Now, hundreds of hospitals across the Southeast are dealing with the loss of supply.
Well, thousands of school buildings in North Carolina, including many in Wake County, don't have carbon monoxide detectors. At 12:30, the cost to get classrooms up to code.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.
Activists are calling for more transparency around law enforcement officials right now as records in Wake County, law enforcement offices here in the wake. This is all in the wake of the Sonia Massey shooting death. Now that follows news of yet another past reprimand involving the deputy who shot her. Amy Kiley has details on that, as well as the status of a grievance filed on behalf of Deputy Sean Gracie.
No justice, no peace. Fresh developments in the Sonia Massey shooting case are rolling in. The Reverend Al Sharpton is calling for the release of certain employment records. They involve when law enforcement workers change jobs or are suspended or fired. That follows the release of audio of a former employer reprimanding Sean Grayson. He's the former Sangamon County deputy charged with murdering Massey.
If we can't trust what you say and what you see, we can't have you in our uniform. When you have officers that stretch the law, they will get caught. They will get prosecuted.
Sharpton says Illinois should name such a law after Massey.
Why was he on the force when 5 other forces had to leave? What is wrong with the system?
Meanwhile, a union says it will not proceed with a grievance it filed to try to get Grayson reinstated. The Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council says it has sympathy for Massey's family.
I would have never in the world thought the police shot my mom. Like, how?
And finally, Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell says he won't step down despite calls for him to resign.
We failed Sonia. We failed Sonia's family and friends. We failed our community. And I stand here today before you with my arms wide open, and I ask for your forgiveness.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Attorney General Merrick Garland says the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division is carefully monitoring the state prosecution of Deputy Grayson.
A wrongfully convicted Missouri man who spent 34 years behind bars is now free. 52-year-old Christopher Dunn was convicted of murder in the 1990 shooting of a 15-year-old boy. He said he was at his mother's house at the time. 2 boys who identified Dunn as a shooter later recanted as adults. Dunn spoke with reporters after his release.
Hold on to the negativity. If I keep on holding on to the past, I would never be able to move forward. So for those who participated in my prosecution, I forgive you. I'm not going to forget, but I do forgive you. But at the same time, I got to move on with my life too.
A judge overturned Dunn's conviction earlier this month, but the state attorney general appealed. The state Supreme Court ruled the state did not have the right to keep Dunn in jail because he no longer had a conviction on his record.
Nearly 90 wildfires are burning right now in the West, including the Park Fire in California. That is now the 5th largest fire ever in that state. Dozens of firefighters from North Carolina are on the West Coast helping out on the ground. 87 firefighters from the North Carolina Forest Service are currently working in states across the West. Firefighter Adam Green and Ethan Min drove a fire engine across the country to eastern Washington state last week. Green says this year is marked by more mega fires.
You know, just fires they basically have explosive growth. You know, that fire that everybody's seeing on the news right now in California, the Park Fire.
And Green and Min will stay out west until August 4th when they'll rotate back home.
Beautiful sunshine out there right now across Raleigh and the Triangle and beyond. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner is out on the WRAL weather patio where it looks beautiful, but it's also really sticky out there, isn't it?
It's really steamy. That is definitely the thing that you notice. It looks beautiful if you can find yourself in some shady spot in our gorgeous garden. It's not as bad, but that sunshine mixed with that humidity is going to make things a little bit on the dangerous side today, but even more so for tomorrow and again on Friday before temperatures start to drop off a little bit over the weekend. Of course, a live look at the gardens this afternoon. Plenty of sunshine out there. Right now it is 87 degrees in the Triangle with a dew point of 73, and that's a pretty high dew point. Our highest dew points tend to be 76, 77, so we're very close to that this afternoon, and we'll see a high of 95, so hotter than we saw over the weekend and last week, of course. Let's take a look again at what that heat index is. Right now it feels like 90 in Fayetteville, feels like 95 in the Triangle, feels like 91 in Clinton. Really the trouble spot is Goldsboro, 104. It already feels like 104 there, but we'll see numbers that look like that across the area this afternoon. So becoming anywhere between 103, maybe 104, 105 in some places, and maybe as high as 108 there in Goldsboro this afternoon. We have just small chances for storms today and tomorrow, but tomorrow is a level 1 risk for severe storms. And we'll see that again on Friday too. And of course, we took a look at the tropics at the beginning of the newscast, and we'll check in again with that tropical system in just a little while. This just looks cooler, doesn't it? You see those clouds, the rainbow. Thanks to Amber Smith for sending us that from Zebulon. Nice to see something that at least looks a little bit cooler, and a beautiful shot of that rainbow. If you have photos you'd love to send us, we'd love to put them on TV. Go to WRAL.com, search Weather Watchers, and send a few of those our way. Around town, 95 this afternoon in Durham, Raleigh, as well as 98 in Fayetteville, so definitely a hot one. This is a look at our forecast this afternoon with the heat index. Should feel like 101 in Durham, 103 in Raleigh, 103 103 in Rocky Mount, 104 in Southern Pines, and up to 107 in Fayetteville. So that puts us very close to a heat advisory, but not quite there. A few folks may see a few scattered storms down in our southern counties this afternoon, but for the Durham Bulls game this evening, it should be fairly dry from the Triangle area northward. I'll show you the new run of the computer model in just a second. 90 though at 6 o'clock, and then 86 around 8 o'clock. Again, the key is finding a shady spot, and we've been in this heat now for well over a month, so I think probably folks are starting to get a little bit used to it. Tomorrow's heat index likely to be around 106 and then 110 on Friday. Still fairly high over the weekend, but Thursday and Friday certainly have the potential to see a heat advisory posted by the National Weather Service. How about records? Not quite. 98 our high temperature for tomorrow, the record high 104, but then Friday 98 with that record of 101, so we'll be a little bit closer to it on Friday than we will tomorrow. This is something that probably most folks don't want to see. Our temperature outlook for the month of August puts us right there at above average, so it doesn't look like we really have much of a break coming our way. What does tend to bring us a break this time of year is those isolated storms. You can see some of that developing across parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. That's going to drop southward into North Carolina and South Carolina and most likely just miss us. We'll see just that isolated chance of some thunderstorms this afternoon and evening, and then that does bump up a little bit for tomorrow. So we're going to talk more about tomorrow and Friday in terms of our severe weather threat and take another look at the tropics in just a little while. Back to you.
Sounds good, Elizabeth. Thanks. Wake County businesses are concerned that road work will hurt their profits. Coming up at 4, we are hearing from the people affected by the Ligon Mill Road closure.
And then apps are tracking your driving, but can that really be used to push your car insurance rates higher? Our team spent weeks asking insurers how they use that data from your phone and testing it, the apps that collect it. We'll share the results with you at 6. Still ahead this noon, Boeing names a new CEO as the company faces additional losses and scrutiny. Why some industry experts believe workers may approve of this aerospace veteran.
Plus, the start of a new school year can be challenging for some students, but preparing now can help. Tried and true advice to help students transition back to the classroom coming up. Breaking news, you're looking live inside the Wake County courtroom where a jury has returned a mixed verdict for Henderson Atwater. He's a Holly Springs man charged in a series of pellet gun attacks that injured 2 people between 2020 and 2021. After 11 and a half hours of deliberations over 3 days, the panel convicted Atwater of all but 3 charges. They are in the sentencing phase right now. There's a look at Henderson Atwater. WRAL's Sean Gallagher is also inside that Wake County courthouse. He'll have live reports in our later newscasts.
Boeing has named a new CEO after reporting an operating loss of almost $1.5 billion in the second quarter. Robert Kelly Ortberg takes over starting August 8th. He's replacing retiring CEO Dave Calhoun, who's been under fire for the company's problems. And that includes increased scrutiny of the safety and quality of its planes. Ortberg has a background as an engineer, not in finance. That could encourage some staff who have criticized Boeing's management for caring more about money than engineering quality. A blood donation nonprofit is dealing with a cyber attack that's affecting more than 250 hospitals across the Southeast, including South Carolina. One Blood says the ransomware attack is causing it to operate at a significantly reduced capacity. Blood and plasma centers across the country are working to help by sending blood and platelets to One Blood. State leaders are addressing a serious issue at schools across North Carolina, the safety hazard in many buildings in need of immediate action. Plus,
so he won't debate, but he and his running mate sure seem to have a lot to say about me.
Vice President Kamala Harris issues a direct challenge to former President Donald Trump for a debate, the high-energy message to her supporters. First, here's a look at the winning North Carolina education lottery numbers.
Shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your #1 source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
Thousands of classroom buildings in North Carolina, including many in Wake County, do not have carbon monoxide detectors.
And today, state school leaders will be deciding how to address that. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey explains the big price tag attached to it.
Talks are happening here inside the state education building about ways to keep your students safe. Today, we'll get a breakdown on what it would take to install carbon monoxide detectors like these in schools. State education leaders are reviewing a report this afternoon. It shows most North Carolina schools don't have them. In Wake County, about 200 school buildings don't have the devices. That's more than a third of school buildings in the county. It would cost about $2.1 million to get them installed. Nikki James Zellner with CO Safe Schools says not having these detectors puts children at risk.
We think that we're protected when we're going into these establishments. We think that our children are protected. But in reality, we're relying on institutional standards that haven't really been updated in a significant amount of time.
We'll be sure to keep you updated on what happens when state education leaders meet later today, as well as give you an update on what's going on with the rest of that report. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News in Raleigh.
Happening today, the State Board of Education will consider name, image, and likeness rules for high school sports. Right now, student athletes in North Carolina aren't allowed to profit off their name, image, and likeness. The average NIL deal for a high school athlete is between $60 and $120. State education leaders will have to make a final decision about NIL in September.
One person is charged in connection with an early morning stabbing in Glenwood South in downtown Raleigh, and more charges are pending. It happened just before 2:30 in the 600 block of Glenwood Avenue. Officers say a woman and two men were stabbed. 25-year-old Milani Barlow is charged with simple assault. Raleigh police say she drove the alleged male suspect to the hospital. No word on the condition of the victims. Police in Durham are looking for a man accused of hitting a Lowe's home improvement employee with a sledgehammer. The attack happened Saturday morning at the Lowe's on Fayetteville Road. Police say a man hit 60-year-old John Wilburn with a sledgehammer before leaving the store with a drill set. Wilburn was rushed to the hospital, where his family says he is in stable condition.
Kamala Harris will be in Raleigh next week with her new running mate, but by her side. The Harris campaign says she will announce that running mate in the coming days, and then they will crisscross the country together. First stop together will be in Philadelphia Tuesday. Then they'll visit the state of Wisconsin and then cities Detroit, Savannah, Phoenix, and Las Vegas next week, along with Raleigh. Harris drew her largest crowd yet at a rally last night in Atlanta. Thousands packed the Georgia State University Arena for her high-energy speech, including former Georgia State Representative Stacey Abrams and a few award-winning music stars.
About to make history with the first female president, the first black female president.
Harris says she is proud of her record as she spoke out against GOP attacks.
I went after transnational gangs, drug cartels, and human traffickers that came into our country illegally. I prosecuted them in case after case, and I won. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been talking a big game about securing our border, but he does not walk the walk. Or as my friend Quavo would say, he does not walk it like he talks it.
Former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance are hosting a rally in Atlanta Saturday.
The president of the National Association of Black Journalists is responding to the resignation of the co-chair of the Chicago Convention. Former President Trump is expected to deliver remarks there today. Karen Attiah says in part because she was not consulted about former President Trump being part of the event. The president of NABJ says the organization has a long-standing practice to invite presidential nominees from both political parties to address the group. A source tells NBC News Kamala Harris is unable to attend for logistical reasons and that NABJ turned down a plan to have her attend virtually. Meanwhile, the director of Project 2025 has stepped down as the Trump campaign continues to distance itself from the controversial plan. Paul Dance and about 140 people who worked in the Trump administration Project 2025 contributed to the document. The former president said he had no idea who was behind it. Trump's team slammed the conservative playbook effort, saying reports of its demise would be, quote, greatly welcomed.
Today, House lawmakers are scheduled to vote on overriding 3 vetoes by Governor Roy Cooper. House Bill 556 would stop local governments from punishing landlords who refuse to rent to people who use federal housing assistance. Cooper says it would make it harder for people to find affordable rental housing. House Bill 155 would allow more modified utility vehicles on more streets, primarily in beach communities. Cooper rejected it over safety concerns. And House Bill 690 would ban state agencies from accepting or testing digital currency. Cooper called it an overreaction. Any veto overrides would also need to be overridden by the Senate.
Fall sports training is about to start up in summer heat. The importance of staying hydrated and not just with water.
A 14-month-old fell into a PVC pipe and got stuck. Firefighters to the rescue. How they've MacGyvered a fix to pull out that little boy. And remember, you can watch WRAL News live anytime on WRAL.com or the WRAL app on your streaming device.
Fall sports are about to kick off, and it's important to make sure your child is staying hydrated. Pediatricians say when an athlete is not well hydrated, their performance and decision-making abilities can suffer. It can also make them more vulnerable to getting injured. And dehydration happens when your body is losing more fluids than it's taking in. Symptoms typically include thirst, dry mouth, headache, fatigue, dizziness, confusion, muscle cramps, and if left untreated, it could lead to heat stroke, which can be deadly. While water is essential, so are electrolytes, and those can be replenished with sports drinks.
We do need electrolytes if you're going to be practicing more than a couple hours or even an hour. And because if you just do water, you can waterlog your child, and then your sodium levels or your electrolyte levels go low. And in a waterlogged child, they can be fatigued a little bit.
Doctors advise athletes to speak up if they notice any kind of discomfort or pain and shouldn't force themselves to keep playing.
There were some tense moments for a Kansas family as firefighters worked to rescue their toddler that was trapped in a pipe. 14-month-old Bentley was outside with his parents when he suddenly fell into a PVC pipe, trapping him 10 feet underground. Firefighters and a paramedic who lives in that same neighborhood arrived on the scene and immediately sprung into action. With tools they had on hand, they were able to make a catch pole with rope and PVC pipe to get little Bentley out.
This isn't a normal situation to respond to, so now we're trying to adapt on the fly, and the resources and the ability to do that is very impressive to have.
And family says they are not sure what that pipe is used for, but they are thankful for the quick thinking from first responders.
Thank goodness Bentley's okay. Some students have already returned to school, but thousands of other traditional students are getting ready for the new year. Up next, we'll share tried and true advice to help students transition back to school.
Breaking news this noon. Just moments ago, a judge sentenced Henderson Atwater. He's the man convicted of dozens of pellet gun attacks in Holly Springs. He sentenced him to a minimum of 7 years in prison. A Wake County jury found Atwater guilty of dozens of charges after 11 and a half hours of deliberations over 3 days. In addition to prison time, Atwater must have no contact with the victim and must receive mental health help. Look for live reports from WRAL's Sean Gallagher in our later newscasts.
Can you believe that July is almost over? Yes, this is the last day of the month. The start of a new school year can be challenging for some students, and experts say preparing for it now can help. Mandy Gaither explains how to help students transition back to school.
Putting away the bathing suits and packing the book bags may feel different for each student.
It's normal for them to have all kinds of emotions.
Strong for Life licensed therapist Jody Baumstein says as students head back to the classroom, gauge how they're feeling by asking open-ended questions and then simply listen.
we think we need to swoop in and save them from the feeling. But when we say things like, don't worry, it's going to be fine, it doesn't make anybody feel better. It actually makes them feel worse because now they feel like there's something wrong with them. They shouldn't feel that way, and you don't get it.
Baumstein says returning to school can be nerve-wracking for some because of the unknown, so help by filling in the blanks.
So thinking about things like going to meet the teacher night or going and taking a tour of the school if it's a new space, this is really important because a lot of kids have anxiety about the physical space.
Routines are important for children, so Baumstein says to start getting back into one. If summer bedtimes are different, inch back to where they should be before the first day of school. If there are new school supplies, practice using them so students are comfortable. And she says to keep the conversation going throughout the school year.
That was Mandy Gaither reporting. Once your children return to school, be sure to ask children about their day. And if you only get one-word answers, try using games at dinner time for conversation starters. For example, play the high and low game, where the child has to tell you the high and low points of their day. Jeff, I remember you used this with your daughters, didn't you?
I did. I used it effectively with them.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it. It's a fun little game. Elizabeth Gardner talks about highs and lows all the time. Right now, we're at a muggy meter high, I think, this afternoon, Elizabeth.
We are. That's a great weather game to play as well, except I think it's just all high and no low, except I hear that when I was gone last week that it was in the 80s and raining and feeling a little bit better. But boy, we're about to jump headlong into some very hot conditions over the next couple of days. We take a look at the gardens. Of course, lots of sunshine out here. We have a lot of shade. There's nobody out here in the gardens that I see right now enjoying any of that, and I certainly understand why. It is very, very warm. We do have the potential for some isolated showers and storms for the next couple of days. Notice what's happening right now just between, say, Lexington and Asheville. We have this cluster of thunderstorms that's developed. That is likely to continue to dive across the mountains and then down into South Carolina. That's what happened overnight last night. We really didn't see much rain out of that, but it's possible that we see some of that in our southeastern counties, and we'll sort of roll through. You can see that hatched brown line, I should say. That's just a trough of low pressure, acts like a weak front. We'll roll it on ahead to 5 o'clock, and you can see that just small chance of a few storms, mainly in our southern counties. We did talk earlier about the fact that the Durham Bulls are starting a homestand. They're, of course, at home tonight and all the way into the weekend. This afternoon and even tomorrow afternoon looks pretty minimal in terms of our chance for storms. We do have a level 1 risk for severe storms, but it's to our west from, say, the Triad down towards Charlotte and westward. And then for tomorrow, we have a level 1 risk for almost the entire state. Here's a look at that risk on Thursday. Damaging winds, heavy rain, some hail, all possible. And then on Friday, same story. It does look like we'll have a slightly better chance for rain on Friday than Thursday, but the risks will be the same, and you can see it covers the entire state. Watching those tropics again. So we have a 60% chance of that system developing. Right now, there's no center that has developed. So once that happens, the models will be able to pick up on that a lot better, and we'll have a better chance of understanding which way it's headed. But we take a look at the probabilities, and the probability is fairly high. It's a 60% chance that it develops there off the coast of the United States, off the southeast coast. And you can see how the high pressure system sitting offshore could funnel it up off the coast of North Carolina. There's still a chance that if it's a weaker storm, it could move into the Gulf of Mexico. The models are still kind of all over the place on which way it may head. So it's something that we'll continue to watch very closely. Again, our temperatures out there this afternoon, definitely on the hot side. It feels like 104 in Goldsboro right now and 95 in the Triangle, and we're headed up to 102 to 104 for this afternoon. Let's go back to those that potential for some tropical systems. So if we do see that storm, the most likely scenario would be dangerous rip currents, some heavy surf. Worst case scenario would be some flooding and some wind that would happen along the coast. So if you have plans to head to the beach this weekend, what do? Keep watching. Don't cancel your plans just yet, but it doesn't necessarily look good to go. So we'll be watching that very closely. The thing for the next couple of days, definitely going to be the heat, that 98 Thursday and Friday with the heat index well into the triple digits.
Star Wars fans, you can embrace your dark side by buying this home in Houston. How much you'll have to pay to live in a house designed after one of the most iconic villains in pop culture history. Fresh off a bronze medal in men's gymnastics, the team event, 2 Americans will compete for gold in the individual all-around. Frederick Richard and Paul Judah took 10th and 13th in qualifying, respectively. The U.S. has not won a men's all-around medal since a bronze in the 2012 London Games. You can watch right now on WRAL.
Don't miss the U.S. women as they take on Australia at 1 p.m. in the knockout rounds. Team USA leads the way with 7 goals through 2 games, while the Australian team ranks second in goals scored.
And let's take a look at the overall medal count. This lunch hour, the USA continues to lead the way, 28 total medals. France is in second place. Great Britain has moved into third now.
As we wrap things up, here's a look at a few of the headlines we're following today.
Yeah, the new owner of the Carolina Hurricanes says they are in serious talks about bringing a Major League Baseball team to Raleigh. At a news conference this morning, Brian Fork said they are in information gathering stages. He also discussed the development in the works around PNC Arena. That'll encompass up to 80 acres of land and will include dining, shopping, a music venue, and much more.
One person is charged in connection with an early morning stabbing in Glenwood South in downtown Raleigh. More charges are pending. This happened just before 2:30 in the morning in the 600 block of Glenwood Avenue. Officers say a woman and 2 men were stabbed. 25-year-old Milani Barlow is charged with simple assault for driving the alleged suspect to the hospital. No word on how the victims are doing.
The plan to build a new Civic Tower in Raleigh took a big step today. Access to Hargett Street between Dawson and McDowell Streets closed to traffic. A large crane is going up and crews are moving barriers into place. Some sidewalks will close to pedestrians and cyclists will have detours as well. An imposing structure just outside Houston is back on the market for nearly $4 million. This so-called Darth Vader home, built in 1992, comes with quite a history. Neighbors say the loud parties hosted there are impossible to ignore. The city says parties hosted at the home violate parking, zoning, and noise rules. The 7,000 square foot home has 4 bedrooms and 5 full baths.
So Darth Vader, Party Vader.
Yeah.
Who knew? Our pet of the day is a very special boy with a loud purr. Meet Butters. He's outgoing, bonds very quickly with people. Butters would make a perfect companion for a quiet household. He needs special food and supplements, but no medications. He does well with high-energy cats or dogs. If you think he'd be right for you, just fill out an application on the Cat Angels website. His face is like, adopt me.
Butters is real cute. Coming up this afternoon on our news at 4 o'clock, an update on a cockfighting operation in Granville County. The new information investigators are sharing about that bust.
Hey, we appreciate you spending time with us here on Fox 50. You can get breaking news updates anytime with our WRAL News app.
Get over there and watch some of the WRAL Olympics action also today, and have a great day.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.